Hi, I am Emily. I am brand new to YouTube. Thank you so much for joining me for my first ever video. I'm a keen knitter and crocheter, and I enjoy lots of other crafts as well. And I'm here to talk to you about how I fit those crafts into my day-to-day life. I'm going to start with a little bit of background about me. I'm going to try and keep it as brief as I can, but if you would like to skip forwards to the real yarny content, then please feel free to use the timestamps down below. So, as I said, my name is Emily and I am the face behind Emily Rose Sews. I'm 33, I live in the very southeast of England, and I have a little home here with my 3-year-old daughter, my 6-year-old son and my long-term partner. We also do have a crazy cat and 2 sweet guinea pigs. I work full-time in the NHS and I generally lead a very busy life. So a lot of this vlog will not only talk about my crafting loves, but also how that fits in with my busy schedule on a weekly basis. I definitely use crafts to keep me grounded and keep me sane. As my name suggests, sewing was actually my first crafty passion. Patchwork, machine sewing, applique, they were all sort of things that were on my radar from early teens, I think. And that was taught to me by my mum, who is a really keen crafter. Name a craft and my mum has tried it. So my mum taught me the patchwork and sewing side of things, which I really enjoyed, and still do enjoy to this day. But what I found with having a young family is that having things like a sewing machine and a cutting mat and an ironing board set up all the time just isn't practical. I don't have a very large house. I don't have very much space really for anything to stay set up long term. So if I ever do get the chance to do any sewing, I have to set the whole lot up. And actually by the time I've done that, often the window is starting to pass already. And that time, you know, the window of time that I've got to do the craft is never very long. So I really tend to lean towards the projects that I can pick up in a bag, grab, start working on and put down pretty readily. And although hand sewing definitely does feature in those projects, they are predominantly knitting and crochet based. My mum is responsible for teaching me everything that I know when it comes to sewing and yarn crafts. Knitting and patchwork were the 2 earlier taught craft. So I went to some patchwork sessions that were intended for children, sort of older children and teenagers with my mum, which I loved, and I will always remember those days that we had together. And my mum also taught me to knit, probably just the very basics. It was when I was in my early teens. I never really got any projects established, or yeah, it didn't really go very far essentially, but I did know how to knit, and the patchwork and sewing definitely started in my teens, and they've, you know, the patchwork and sewing has carried on. My mum also used to offer repeatedly to teach me how to crochet, and I was really stubborn and I kept saying no, and then I wasn't really that bothered about it. I actually distinctly remember one day going into my mum's craft room at my parents' house. My mum has a craft room that just would floor some of you. It is phenomenal. And my mum tried so hard to show me some yarn and to get me interested, and I remember saying to her, yarn just doesn't interest me. Obviously that has changed now, but I really remember that moment of just having no interest in it whatsoever. One morning I did finally give in, and I quite reluctantly said, okay, let's do it. Teach me to crochet. And obviously there was no looking back. So that day I learnt to chain, I learnt to double crochet, I learnt to treble crochet. I made a tiny little swatch that I have still kept to this day. It is incredibly tight. It could probably stand up on its own if I folded it in half. But I will always treasure the fact that my mum sat with me and showed me, despite her being left-handed. Actually, we managed it. And I remember that afternoon saying, okay, well, I want to do something real, so let's have a look at some yarn, and I want to make something. And I did, and I chained a really long chain, and I started a blanket. And it's a beautiful, scrappy, cosy striped blanket. I'm sure you'll come to see it over the next couple of videos because it is always in my lounge. If there's any video footage that I've already got, or I'll see if I can take some, I will pop it in here now. But this blanket was the first ever project that I properly started, and it is still used now by myself, my other half, the children. We use it all the time, and I absolutely adore it. So my favourite projects to make are definitely those that I either don't need a pattern, or that I've slightly made up, or that I have managed to memorise. So something with quite a simple pattern that doesn't have lots of repeats or rows or counting. And I'm very confident that's again linked back to my busy life as a mum, in that I don't get very long windows and I don't get many opportunities to sit down where I can actually concentrate and count without being interrupted. That doesn't mean that I don't have those projects. So I have some really pretty knitted shawls cast on, and those patterns I absolutely have not memorised. So I do enjoy making those projects when I get a chance, but I just have to be careful about when I do them. Typically they're definitely an after the children have gone to bed job. So those projects are safely in project bags where they're not going to get pulled out and dragged off their needles. They're kept safe and they're ready to be brought out and indulged in when the children have gone to bed, and I can drink a hot cup of tea and get some time to myself. In general, I'm nearly always making something flat, which might sound like a silly thing to say, but you are much more likely to find me making something like a shawl or a blanket than amigurumi or soft toys or anything small and intricate, for the same reasons really, in that following a pattern just isn't easy for me a lot of the time, in terms of being distracted. So I'll often have a blanket or a scarf or a shawl or something flat and repetitive on the go, and that is what I love. Again, I have a really busy job. I work 10-hour days. That doesn't include commute times. By the time I get home, I'm often tired and ready to do something that's quite repetitive and relaxing and therapeutic. So those kind of projects are definitely my favourites. Now, while we're on the topic of what's on my needles, I'm going to start with a confession. Probably my first confession, because I'm sure there will be more to come. My first confession is that I very rarely finish projects. I am absolutely terrible for seeing things on social media, seeing things in people's YouTube videos, seeing what other crafty friends have got cast on. I see things and I want to make one there and then, and I am terrible for it. I see a pattern I love, or I see some yarn that I love, and off I go. So it's quite common that I will be midway through multiple projects. Some of them might even have time constraints, and I will see a pattern that I've fallen in love with, and I will need to find yarn for it there and then. And that might come from my stash, which is, it seems to be outgrowing the space that I have to keep it in. It's not enormous, it's not quite what I know some friends have, but I don't have very much space. So in comparison with the space that I have for it, it's definitely too much. But also I am really naughty for impulsively buying yarn online, because I found a pattern that I want to do and I want to do it now. So that's something that I really, really want to work on this year, and it's actually one of the reasons why I've started this vlog, because I'd really like somewhere to sort of keep up to date with progress on things, and it gives me a little bit of a motivating factor. Yeah, just having someone else, I guess it keeps me accountable for what I've said I'm going to do. Watch this space, because it might not happen. So what else might you like to know? I do have a craft room, but it's also a toy room. Again, I've got a very small house that's definitely overfilled with toys and craft. So I'm not going to show it to you currently because it looks like a plane has landed in here, but I essentially have one wall of a room for storage. So I've got a huge IKEA Kallax unit that's full of my crafty stuff, and I have this little desktop area here, but also this is predominantly child craft stuff heavy. So it's what we call the toy room. The children play in here, the children's toys all in here. So this typically isn't where I would sit to craft, but it is definitely somewhere that I can come when I have some quiet time, and it's also somewhere that I use to store my craft stuff. So it's not pretty, it's not set up like a nice studio. I'm really envious of people that have lovely working spaces like that, but I do have somewhere to store my yarn, which is great. As a consequence of not having as much space as probably my stash requires, it does tend to spill out into the lounge a little bit, because on the sofa in the lounge is where you'll most likely find me if I'm crafting. So I have bought some baskets, and I do have a few baskets that tend to sit around the lounge with me, that have a few bags of yarn in, and numerous project bags with works in progress in them. I also run a local community crochet group with my friend. We set the group up in April 2024, so it will be approaching 2 years in the spring. The reason we decided to do it is because there are numerous groups around locally, but they tend to be for people who are already crocheters. So there are crochet clubs or knit and natter type clubs, but they're for people who can already do the crafts. And what we found was, we sort of advertised, we suggested having an evening group a good 4 years ago, but we weren't confident enough to teach people. So we said, the groups we've got currently in our village are daytime only. Would anyone be interested in an evening group? And we did get a little bit of interest, but predominantly we had interest from people who wanted to learn to do those crafts, predominantly crochet, which we weren't quite ready for at the time. So we went along to a couple of the other groups when we were able to. But what we found was that we had lots of ideas, and we had that passion to try and spread the love for crochet, and we decided to just take the plunge. So we quite cautiously set up an evening crochet group where we advertised some starter sessions, so you don't have to have any experience, just come along and we'll teach you how to crochet. And we had loads of interest. So fast forward however many months it is, just over 18 months, we have a really lovely regular group of people who we have taught to crochet and who come along now. We do group projects, people bring their individual projects, we do regular starter sessions for new people who'd like to learn the craft, and we've just set up a really nice community of people who sit and help each other, support one another, share ideas, and we do little show and tell type things where people will bring their projects in. It's just delightful. And it's run in our local tea room and thrift shop, which is just fantastic. So we sit around and we drink tea, we eat cake, and we chat and we craft and we support one another. It is beautiful. So I'm here on YouTube because I've been inspired by lots and lots of other crafters and vloggers. Like I said, I'd like somewhere to keep myself held accountable for the things that I need to get done in terms of crafts. And also, I just think to myself how many projects I've started because of having watched someone on YouTube either advertise their pattern or show me their projects or show me the yarn that they've bought. I get so much of my inspiration from other people here, and I'd really like to do the same. There are also so many people that I watch on YouTube that I genuinely feel like are my friends, and obviously we've never met in person, and I might not even have lots of direct interaction with them on their channels, but logging onto YouTube and opening up those vlogs and watching things like vlogmases and, you know, catch up crafty posts and all of those things that get posted, I genuinely feel like those people are my friends, to the point where my children say hello and they know the names of vloggers that I watch, and my other half says, oh, how's so-and-so today? Because it's become a really important part of my life and almost like a friendship that I've built. And I just love the idea of that, building a community and being able to share resources and share inspiration, and have people to interact with that have the same interests. So that is my goal. So I really hope that some of you would like to join me as I start on this journey. Okay, so my very first project might have been a poor choice because it's the only one that I actually don't have here in person to show you, and that's because I knitted it for my mum for Christmas. So I'm going to insert some footage of it now. This is the Hiraeth Shawl. Now, I do have one here to show you. This was my first attempt at one, and this is one of my first ever knitting projects. So it starts down this end with a really pretty textured section, and then we go into some stripes and then finish with a lace panel. So this is my first one. So the pattern for that is called the Hiraeth Shawl, and it's by Knit to be Tied. It's a paid for pattern. I got my pattern on Ravelry and it's around about £4.50 in British pounds at the moment. The pattern's really well written. I really enjoyed it. Like I say, at the time of making that first Hiraeth shawl, I was a real novice knitter, and that was the first thing I'd cast on that wasn't just garter stitch, knitting backwards and forwards. So the pattern was well written, and I thoroughly enjoyed the make. I like that it's got 3 colours because I really get excited for colour changes, and the sections all go together really nicely. So yeah, highly recommend this make. The yarn that I've used for the newer version is Drops Nord. Now I have 2 of the colours here with me. So these 2 here are 2 of the colours that I used. So there's an off-white, and this one is called Fog. It's a really nice, I'm not sure how well you can see it. It's a really nice pale blue, but it's got sort of a dusty grey tinge to it. It's really pretty. So I use these 2, and then a really nice deep aqua blue that's called a Deep Ocean Mix. So they were all three of them were Drops Nord yarn, and I bought those online. The yarn is 50 grams of 45% alpaca, 30% polyamide and 25% wool. So it does have wool in it. You will have to be careful with washing, but it's also really soft. It's got a slight halo to it, and it's not scratchy, which some wools can be. So the first Hiraeth that I made, this nice pink one, I actually didn't block. So you'll see in here, the lace section is still really pretty, and you can see the detail, particularly when I hold it up. But it's not quite as open as the one that I made for my mum for Christmas. Hopefully I've captured it in the video or the photos that I've put in, but I did block my mum's one for Christmas, and it grew much more than I was expecting it to, and it really opened out the sort of textures and the patterns. I was really quite shocked at the difference after blocking, so I'll definitely be blocking the next ones. Possibly I won't block it quite so harshly. I think I might have pulled it out quite to an extreme, I guess, potentially over blocking it. So it's really shown the sort of lace patterns nicely, but I think I potentially stretched it a little bit too much. So if I were to make a third one, which I likely will because I really enjoy them, I definitely won't block it quite so hard, but I definitely will block it. I don't know whether it's too late to block the one that I've got here. I mean, I made it before I had children, so probably 2017-ish I made the first Hiraeth shawl. I don't know whether it's too late to block it. I could give it a try, I guess. Let me know in the comments whether you know the answer to that question. Is it too late to block something I made 8+ years ago? Who knows? Now, I do have a little selection of Drops Nord, which is a really nice yarn. I'm using it in another one of my knitted projects at the moment, but I've also got a few colours that just really keep catching my eye, and I'm not entirely sure what to do with them yet, but I've got them out. So while they're here, I think I'm just going to show you. Look how pretty these are. I just love them together, but also they're too similar to my first Hiraeth shawl to be able to make one of those with them, really. So I really love them, but I'm not quite sure what to do with them yet. They're just hovering here. I left them with the Hiraeth shawl because obviously that's the yarn that I've used, but that's yarn that's on my radar that I'd like to use, but I'm really trying to finish a couple of other things first, so watch this space for that. Now, the next project I would like to talk to you about is my Seixal Shawl, which is a little bit of a tongue twister. Now, this is a pattern by Emma Carter of Emma C Makes. I love Emma's stuff. Now, there are lots of people that I follow on Instagram and YouTube, and some people I follow because I really love the company that I get when I watch them. Some people I love because I really love their patterns, and potentially we have different colour tastes, but I look past that and look at the sort of things that they're making and the patterns that they're using and decide, you know, which ones I'd like to do in my own colour scheme. Emma Carter from Emma C Makes has really similar taste to me, and she just has this way of making me want to make everything that she makes. There's not one of her projects that I've looked at and thought, I just look at all of them and I think, oh my word, that pattern with that yarn is just a little bit of me. So this is one of Emma's patterns. It's a Seixal shawl, but it's not spelt the way you'd expect it to be. So it's Seixal. I'll pop it on the screen. So a Seixal shawl. I love this because it is one of those really nice, simple, monotonous, backwards and forwards. You don't need to look at the pattern every time because it's the same 2 rows repeated over and over again, and it's got that lovely garter squishiness to it. So it's essentially a triangular shawl. It is just going to be one big triangle. It's using mini skeins of yarn striped with one main colour, and it's just going to get bigger and bigger, and I'm going to add 1 mini skein at a time until it runs out. And it's got I-cord edges. I just love it, and it's going to be really nice and big. And what I'd really like for this one is that it's probably going to sit in my lounge with me when it's done, so that I can just wrap it around me of an evening when it gets a little bit chilly. I have got some really beautiful yarns to go with this. The yarn is from, well, I bought it in Whitster Wool, which is a new yarn show. It launched for the first time in 2025, so we've just had the first ever show. It was on the 1st of November. They actually used Whitstable Castle as a venue, which is really incredible. It's a really quirky venue. It had lots of different little sort of rooms and displays and things going on. They've got a really nice cafe in there for refreshments. It was just something really different. And it wasn't huge, so it wasn't overwhelming, but they had some really good vendors in there that had some beautiful yarns and things on display. And again, the people that were selling their yarn there were all slightly different, so it wasn't lots of the same thing. It was a really, really lovely show. And they have confirmed that they are coming back in 2026, so I highly recommend that you check it out and get your tickets if you're interested. I don't think they're open to buy the tickets currently, but definitely keep your eyes peeled because I really highly recommend it. So the first colour, I obviously don't really have anything left, but the first colour was a really nice denim-y type blue. So that's what I started off with, striped with the cream, and I have just transitioned to my second colour here. I'm not sure how well you can see it, but it's like a mid-grey. They're really pretty together, and I will tell you about how I chose these yarns in a minute. They're not a gradient, but I've chosen some colours that hopefully will sort of line up nicely and blend from one to another. It won't be a gradient as such, but they're quite pretty. So they're the first 2 colours. I've also wound my third colour. So this one is a really nice light, really pastel blue, this one. And then I'm going to try and hold these up in a little sort of gradient. These ones here are my next colours. So I'm going to go from the blues into a grey, and then some really nice pale pinks blending into lilacs and the more sort of indigo colours. And this last one on the end here is almost got sort of, it's definitely a pinky purple, but it's got almost a rusty tone to it as well. They're all really pretty. Now, I spent a lot of time at Whitstable looking for a mini skein set for this project. I had this in mind. I saw Emma's Seixal shawl. I loved it. Again, I was really impulsive. I needed mini skeins to do it. I wanted to do it there and then. So I went along to Whitstable looking for mini skein sets, and I could not find a set that I loved. There was just not anything. There were some that I liked, some of the yarns, but not all of them. I didn't fall in love with any. Then one of the last stalls that I went to was right upstairs on the top floor of the castle, and it's called All Wool That Ends Wool. And these people had one of the carousel type displays with all of their mini skeins hanging from it, and there were hundreds of colourways, and I knew immediately that that's where I was going to be getting my yarn from. They had some beautiful, beautiful colours, so I just chose 10 that I loved and that I was able to sort of line up. Again, like I say, it's not an absolute gradient, but they do, there is kind of an order to them, and I do want them to follow that order. Yeah, so it's lovely, lovely yarn. It's got a really nice twist to it. It's sock yarn, so it's 4-ply. These are 20-gram minis, and it is 75% superwash merino and 25% nylon. They're just really pretty. They've got a really nice twist, and it's not entirely solid. There are very subtle fluctuations in the colour. So that's from All Wool That Ends Wool. Now the cream that I'm using again is the off-white. It's the Drops Nord. So this is going to be my main colour. I've got lots of balls of this ready. So these are going to be, this is my main colour that I'm alternating, because this is a 4-ply yarn as well. I'm striping it with my minis. Now, the next project I'm going to show you is my crocheted ripple blanket. I'm just going to put my hook down to stop it clattering against the desk. So this is where I'm up to so far. Not sure how much you can see. So it is a crochet ripple blanket, but it is a pattern that I've kind of made up because I wanted to add a tiny little bit of texture. So I decided to do a fairly standard ripple blanket with a 5-row stripe, but in this middle row here I've chosen to pop some chain spaces in just to give it a little bit of texture. So in these holes I just chain one and skip a stitch, but I think it works quite nicely. I have made basically this exact blanket before, because I do take fairly casual orders from people that I know when they would like baby blankets made. So I've made one just like this before, which turned out really, really beautiful. And when my friend contacted me and said she wanted a baby boy blanket, I sent her some of the ones that I've made just to give her some ideas of sort of colours that I can use and textures and things like that, and she loved this and asked me to reproduce it basically. So that is what I'm doing. I'm really loving it. Again, I kind of made up what I was doing with it, so I definitely don't need to follow a pattern for it. It is just repetitive and therapeutic, and I really enjoy doing it. This has got to be a priority for me before next time. So there, I'm going to try and hold myself accountable, because the baby does have a due date. There is a time frame on this. I do need to get this done. So this is definitely going to be my priority between now and next time. So yeah, check back next time to see whether I have followed through with that or not. The yarn they're all double knit acrylic yarns. The blue one here is Storm Blue. So this is a Stylecraft special double knit yarn, and it's really affordable, but also one of the softest and I would say better washing acrylic yarns I've used. And then the other 3 yarns, so I've got these 3 here. The white one's becoming a bit unravelled. These 3 are all Stylecraft Bambino. And again, it's an acrylic double knit yarn, but it's just got a slightly different feel to it and a slightly different twist. The Bambino yarn is my absolute favourite acrylic yarn. So this is what I tend to lean to when I'm making baby blankets. But they also, Stylecraft also do Bellissima, which I can't find a difference between Bambino and Bellissima, other than I think they've used softer colours for the Bambino one, because I'm assuming it's aimed at babies. So the softer colours tend to come in the Bambino style, whereas Bellissima have some sort of bolder, richer colours, but they're still really, really lovely, and they feel exactly the same as the Bambino. But they're really good. They wash really well. I've made lots of things for my own children in this yarn, because it's just really, really handy for sort of children and things that are going to be washed, which a baby blanket probably will be. So they're really affordable. They're readily available online and in lots of my local shops. So it just makes it really convenient. But also I know that it will be convenient for the new parents to be able to stick it in the washing machine and wash it with no problems. So that's where I'm at with my little ripple baby blanket. Okay, and lastly, I'm going to start a feature which I'm hoping is going to help me with some of my goals for this year. I'm going to call it From the Basket. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull something out from the basket. I am going to dig out an old project from my craft room, and I'm going to bring it here and I'm going to show it to you, and I'm going to set myself a little goal between the video where I sort of pull it out of the basket and the following one. And I'm hoping it's going to help me dig out some of my old projects that haven't been worked on for many years, and try and see a little bit of progress. And I don't necessarily mean that they're going to get finished really rapidly, but even just adding a few rows to an older project would be progress, and I'd really like to see that. So I'm going to do my very first from the basket. It's actually not in a basket at all. It's in a project bag. This beautiful project bag was made for me by a lovely friend of mine, Kim, who's also my mum's friend. They've known each other since way before I was born. Kim is fantastic. She's a crocheter, but she's also predominantly, she does all this beautiful sewing, machine and hand. She has a shop in Whitstable Harbour. She sells the most beautiful things. So if you're ever in Whitstable, I really recommend popping down to the harbour. She is Kimmy's Makes on Instagram and in her little hut. Now, from my basket, I have pulled, remove the hook, a moss stitch chevron blanket. I love this project. Excuse the fact that I haven't cut any of my ends off. I just love this. Now, this project, again, was something that I saw someone make online. I totally loved it. I've seen so many of these in various different colourways, and I decided this would be a really good scrap buster. So I've got a bag here full of double knit acrylic, because I've got lots of it floating around from all the baby blankets and things that I've made previously. And I thought, do you know what, this is a really good opportunity for me just to gather lots of all the pastel coloured double knit acrylic yarn that I've got floating around. And some of it I've got teeny tiny little balls hanging about, but it's enough just to do a single row of moss stitch. And I love it. It's quite slow to grow. It doesn't grow very fast because obviously it's only a UK double crochet with a chain, so it's quite a short stitch, and the rows overlap as well, so it is slow to grow, but I really enjoy the process. And that's, again, a lot of what crafting is about for me. It's about the process and me using it as sort of grounding and a focus in the evenings, just to keep my sort of mind and hands busy. So this is the perfect project for that. I don't need to count, I don't need to follow a pattern. It's really nice to do. So I've got my beautiful chevron blanket, and this bag is absolutely full of just random yarns and that are all just double knit acrylic. Now, I've left these three on top because I don't know whether anyone else here does this, but every so often I will catch sight of something and think, oh, I'm going to take a picture of that because I need to remember that. For some reason, the way I put these yarns back in this bag was like this, and I saw those yarns together and I thought, what a perfect colour combination. I absolutely love those three together. So I took a little photo. There's no way I'll use all of those in this blanket, and I know these are yarns that I often buy, so I think, yeah, this will hopefully feature in another blanket. I don't know what that looks like yet. I'm not going to plan anything. I'm trying really hard not to cast anything else on, so I'm not going to do anything yet. But I saw those three together and I thought, oh my goodness, I love those. So I'm going to just, I mean, I will use the others underneath them. I'm not going to leave them like that, but I just wanted you to see them while they were like it, because I just caught sight of it on the sofa and thought, wow, yep, I need to record that. So that is my first from the basket. And I've just added this purple row. I did do a couple of rows. I found this a couple of days ago, pulled it out, and I have added a few rows to it already. I was on this bluey colour in here, so I've added this peach onwards. So I think I've added 9 rows to it since it's been back out. But I would really like to add just a few more rows to it before next time. So that's another little goal. I need to progress my stripy chevron blanket, and I'd really like some time just to add a few more rows to this scrappy chevron blanket. So I think they are going to be my goals between now and next time. So that's it for my very first YouTube video. A really quick glimpse into my crafty life. I'm going to be sharing more projects, more ideas, more patterns and more inspiration next time, and hopefully some more projects from the basket as well. So I really hope you'll come back and join me next time. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.